Hey everyone, so One Piece chapter 1041 just came out, and this was an absolutely packed chapter. I mean, it was sort of a setup chapter, but at the same time, it really was a, stuff happens sort of a chapter, and we're just going to get a lot more of that, I suppose, as we approach the conclusion to this battle. Now, I think that this chapter, I've been saying it for a bit, but I feel like with this chapter, we may have finally set up the last plot points that need to be resolved for this conflict. I might be wrong, but at least that's what it looks like to me. I mean, based on the way that the chapter ended, right? With Luffy essentially calling it that, like, the fight is ending, or at least in its final legs, right? It seems to me that we should be approaching basically the climax and the resolution to a lot of these plot points, right? At least for this battle. But before we get into it, we need to acknowledge the real reason that Big Mom was defeated. She didn't eat right. All those years of binging junk food finally caught up to her because she didn't have HelloFresh, the healthy, delicious meal prep service delivered straight to your door. With HelloFresh, you're getting home-cooked meals that you can choose yourself out of 50 weekly menu items. They're delivered straight to you, so no grocery shopping, no time wasted looking up recipes. Everything is set up and ready to go, so you can make your meals in less than 20 minutes. Ever since I started using HelloFresh, my life genuinely became a lot easier. Now I don't have to think about what I'm having for dinner. I'm not having to spend an hour cooking after a long day of work, and I hardly ever go to the grocery store anymore. Not to mention, the meal options actually do cater to everyone. You can get the fit and wholesome package, or you can get family friendly, or meat and veggie, or just vegetarian. There are great packages for whatever type of cuisine you are looking for. I myself just cooked up one of my favorites, pork tenderloins, that I'm going to be eating for the next couple of days. And the best part is, you can try 16 free meals delivered straight to you. Literally 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. So if you're tired of cooking and grocery shopping, if you want to have delicious, healthy meals that require basically zero effort, then get your free HelloFresh meals today. Just go to HelloFresh.com and use code MrMorge16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. Link in the description below. Now that aside, let's take it from the top. So, first, Momonosuke. From this conversation alone, right, this brief conversation, we got 3 interesting points. 1, Odin said, no spoilers, right? So Odin took out the pages of the logbook that really mattered. He did not want anyone to know, right? So that changes a lot. It means that, first of all, the secrets to One Piece and everything haven't just been revealed to Yamato, Momonosuke, anything. Like, nobody knows. We're still in the state where nobody knows, right? That's good. That's important for the story going forward. I know we're getting really close to figuring out a lot of these final mysteries, but it is really important that the number of characters that know the full history or whatever, at least who are in contact with the Straw Hat crew, right, and potentially might be sailing with them in the future, that number needs to remain 0 for the story to continue to have, excitement heading towards that final solving of that mystery, right? So that's 1. Good to know. 2, it is really being pushed now that, okay, Luffy is not potentially the only person who is being framed as this guy who's going to bring the dawn of the world. Could be Momonosuke, right? It could be Momonosuke. It's tricky because it depends how much those ideas of Joy Boy and the man who will bring the dawn of the world, or woman, we don't even know. Could be Vivi, that's a good guess, right? We don't know how much these things are synonymous versus different people, because Momonosuke, as far as we know, he was born too early to be that person, right? To be Joy Boy, or to be the next sovereign. But at the same time, does that have to be the same as the person who brings the dawn of the world? There's different titles and different prophecies, I suppose, at play here potentially, or maybe it's all one. We'll find out going forward, but it does raise, an interesting parallel question, which is just like, is it just Luffy? Is it Luffy and Momo? Is it Luffy, Momo, Vivi? Is it just Vivi? Is it somebody else that we're not thinking of at all, which would be really exciting? We don't know, but good that that's still being pushed. And then finally, just the fact that Momonosuke strangely is having another, it's a new character conflict, I suppose. This is not something that he's had to struggle with or think about before. And I like that it's happening right now, because it sets the stage for him having his, big character moment of holding up Onigashima, which I think we can all still expect is going to happen, right? It's good to have some sort of personal character conflict going into that moment, right? Otherwise, it's kind of just something that's happening, right? A thing that's happening. Momo's holding up Onigashima. It's good to have him in a sort of uncertain state beforehand. Now, I was not expecting the conflict to be, Momonosuke thinking of, should I even be opening the borders of Wano country? Because now he's questioning, a simple fact, which is fair. It's logically fair that, well, Oden couldn't have known everything that comes 20 years from now. Oden couldn't have known whether, what the right decision was in the future. Oden, even back then, he was wrong on the fact that, he thought that he should have been out and about adventuring and seeing the world when he realized that he should have been at home taking care of Wano and protecting its people, and because the fact that he left to go adventure is what led to Orochi taking over and Kaido taking over. So, that's a fair point by Momonosuke. Now, the tricky thing for me is I still don't fully understand what opening the borders to Wano country means, because yeah, Momo's got a good point that maybe to keep safe, we should keep the borders closed and everything like that, but people are going to come in whether they want to or not. What does it mean to open the borders of Wano country? Is it something physical? Is there a way to physically change the state of Wano country to make it, open for outsiders? Because at the moment, short of just some security patrolling the borders or something like that, there's nothing really to open or close. I mean, there is no security or anything like that. What are we talking about when we say open the borders of Wano country? Does Momo just say, I declare the borders open? What does it mean? So that's something to figure out going forward. Now, Komurasaki, right? Or potentially Toki, we don't know. It is played up a little bit here where, Orochi himself is calling out, why don't you take the mask off? Who are you under the mask? How do I even know you're Komurasaki? As far as we know, she keeps the mask on to hide her tears. That's what she did in Act 2. That was the reason she was wearing the mask in Act 2. She hides her tears when she plays that song. Makes sense. But it does, Orochi does accidentally raise the question of, okay, who are you? Are you definitely Komurasaki? Because we still have that Lady Toki hanging little plot thread, right? Now, Komurasaki, she traps Orochi, I guess, clever trap, I suppose. I don't know the sea stone nail, I guess maybe I didn't fully understand how she got that on him, or if that was something that fell on him with the rest of the rubble. Don't exactly understand that, but I guess good trap by her. I don't know. I guess it's a good trap by her. But just a little funny to me the way it played out. But and also Orochi's just I think a few things about that scene are funny to me. Just Orochi's shocked that she doesn't actually love him when she explicitly, we've been through this. She told you this in Act 2. We've been through this whole scene in Act 2 when she made very, very clear that she does not love you, and you actually ordered her to be killed. So it's just funny to me that Orochi's just, I don't know, he's just not the sharpest tool. Right? I just thought that scene was a little comical in a few ways. But I wonder what we're going to come up against next, which is, it might be a beheading of Orochi, or I don't imagine her shooting him, right? She does have that samurai blood and everything like that. I do feel like a beheading is in order. But in that case, is Orochi actually going to die? Is she actually going to kill Orochi? We don't actually usually kill villains in One Piece, so remains to be seen. This scene might be a lot more serious the next time we come back to it. Then Izzo and CP0 and X Drake, before I forget about him. Look, right now, it feels like CP0, everything, it's a little weird if you backtrack, right? So, they keep shifting. What they're supposed to be doing keeps shifting over the course of this battle, and they keep running into, I guess, minor roadblocks that stall them for a chapter, and then they move on, chapter 2, and then they move on past that roadblock, so it didn't really matter, and then new roadblock, or whatever, and then new initiative. The CP0's had a sort of meandering sort of plotline throughout all of this, but I feel like this might be the final initiative for them, right? It does feel like this is the final initiative for them, so now it's finally drop Robin, go after Luffy, and it's just maybe don't do that. Maybe go after Robin, because that's a lot more reasonable at this point. Izzo just took out one of your guys, so I don't know what chances you've got going up against Luffy. X Drake is also getting back up, so I wonder if that fight picks back up again. I was hoping that X Drake would awaken when the rest of the Beast Pirates awaken, but maybe he still gets that Zone Awakening when the time comes. After all, he's in a pretty bad shape right now, I guess, to be trying to take on CP0 again. So I do think Izzo and Awakening might be in order if X Drake is to put up a better showing against CP0 this time. Now, how important Luffy is to all this, it's so hard to figure out at this point, because it's just like the big, if it's related to his devil fruit, sure, but the big question then is, if it's related to his devil fruit, why was this not a thing earlier in the story? Everyone's known that he has the Gomu Gomu no Mi for a long time. Now, understandably, there seems to be some lack of information or some information gap between the Gorosei and I suppose Im, right? That was referenced a couple chapters ago when Zunisha appeared. But at the same time, it's just, if it's the Gomu Gomu no Mi that's so special, somebody would have, like, Im would have known, right? And information would have gotten passed down. So maybe it's not the Gomu Gomu no Mi, maybe it's some other characteristic of Luffy that has been identified just recently. After all, last we saw Im, he was rifling through different posters. He was looking at Luffy, Blackbeard, Vivi, Shirahoshi, trying to pick the light that has to be extinguished. Perhaps Luffy was the light that he saw, even though Vivi's was the poster that he took with him. So to me, there has to be something new that Luffy has done, or some new aspect of Luffy that the world government, specifically the Celestial Dragons, have become aware of. Probably specifically Im has become aware of recently, that has triggered this sort of response. Maybe it's related to Luffy unlocking Advanced Conqueror's Haki even. It's so hard to say, but something new has occurred, right? Like, this is not Luffy's first tangle with Cypher Pole or anything like that by any means. So the fact that just now it has been decided that he needs to be eliminated at all costs, that means that there's something that we're missing here, something we kind of have to go back through and like parse through and figure out, okay, what could have been the trigger for Cypher Paul, Gorosei, etc., Im really realizing that Luffy is the one that has to go down. So that's something, I've got nothing on that, no theories on that. So moving on, I'm just interested in that, right? Moving on, basically we got Kid and Law. I like the fact that they make it very clear that even if they would like to perhaps take on Kaido, as Kid seems, somewhat ready to do, but obviously not really, because they're both completely spent of strength. Oda made it very clear that these two are not going to be able to fight if Kaido comes back down, right? So that's good to know. Kind of makes things easier for us to zone in and focus on Luffy versus Kaido without having to think about, like, okay, are these other characters going to come up to help, etc., etc. Now, all the Straw Hats, they seem to be in really good shape, relatively speaking, besides like Zoro and Sanji. Now, Luffy and Kaido, right? So specifically, the Kaido flashback that seems coming. This is, I think, the first time that we really got a good look at, young Big Mom in the manga. I think the first time we got a really good look at her, because we've seen her in silhouettes and like bits and pieces, but I think this was the first time, we actually just saw what young Big Mom looked like, right? Classic Oda woman design. The relationship between Kaido and Big Mom seems much less contentious than you might have expected way back when, right? Big Mom almost seems like a bit of a mentor figure to him. So it's been maybe like a mentor figure, big sister sort of figure. I guess that's what we're sort of picking up on slowly over time. And, while at first it was referenced that, or suggested that they've been at each other's throats for a long period of time, right? The more and more we've gotten to see, the more and more it seems like they get along somewhat well, even if they insult each other and kind of like are brusque with each other pretty frequently. And Big Mom did suggest that she had something up her sleeve, and possibly still has something up her sleeve, to potentially not be as cooperative with Kaido as she seems to be playing at. But on Kaido's end, it did seem somewhat genuine, right? So that's interesting to see that, like, from Kaido's end, Big Mom was actually some sort of a important figure important figure to him in his childhood, right? In his youth, when he was just starting out with Rocks at age 15. And on top of that, he does seem to somewhat regret the fact that she seems to have gone down, right? He does seem to regret the fact that he's alone now in his quest for One Piece, even though that was the case even just a week ago. But I think he started to like the idea that they're going to get the One Piece together. So that's interesting. It actually probably gives Kaido a little added motivation and anger, it looked like, the way that he yelled at Luffy and released his Conqueror's Haki, that Big Mom has gone down. So I like that heading into the final phase of the fight. And now, the most important part of this, which is Snake Man, right? So Luffy went into Snake Man. I think a lot of people believe that it would be some new Gear 4th form like Tiger Man. Luffy does make it sound as though this is his last go in Gear 4th, right? So even if there's something else up his sleeve or whatever, I don't think we're seeing another Gear 4th form, right? Just because, even if you think it's Awakening, even if you think it's Gear 5th or whatever, when Luffy's coming out and saying, this is my last Gear 4th, I feel like that's more so perhaps Oda suggesting that this is it for Gear 4th, right? So maybe the rest of the fight plays out in Snake Man. Maybe he's got something else up his sleeve, but I don't think we're going to see a different Gear 4th form to close this out. Now, I personally think that Luffy loses here, right? And you can look out for my video next week, which will be explaining exactly why. Even if you don't think the raid will fail, I definitely think that Luffy does not succeed in defeating Kaido with Snake Man. Right? I definitely think that Kaido gets the better of Snake Man. So, details on that, you can wait for my video next week, but that's just what I think at the moment. As it is right now, it does look like Snake Man, I'll just say this, I think Snake Man fits really well as a choice for Luffy to break out in this final stage of, like, what he perceives to be the final stage of his fight with Kaido, because, you know, while you might be thinking something like Bound Man or even a new form like Tiger Man or something like that, Snake Man in my mind makes a lot of sense because Luffy's got the raw power down, right? Luffy's attacks hurt Kaido. He has advanced Conqueror's Haki. He has not been needing more raw power ever, like, since he got advanced Conqueror's Haki, right? He's got that part down. He has the attack strength of a Yonko at this point, right? So going Bound Man might not actually help that much because he's not really looking for more power or force, even something like Tiger Man. To me, it makes sense, you know, now that we're seeing it, now that I'm thinking about it, okay, yeah, Snake Man, make your attacks faster, harder for Kaido to block, harder for Kaido to avoid, because the power's already there, so now you need the movement speed, the unpredictability, the attack speed, etc. So I like the fact that Snake Man, you know, is maybe not the pick that people were expecting against Kaido, but it's the pick that does logically make somewhat sense if you're thinking about it from Luffy's perspective. So that's all for this video. I'm definitely looking forward to chapter 1042. If you enjoyed, then definitely like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to go to HelloFresh.com and use code MrMorge16 to get 16 free meals and up to 3 surprise gifts.